Here today with Kathleen Nelson, past chairman of ICSC and holder of many other offices in ICSC. This is a conversation. We're not sure exactly precisely what we'll say to each other, but we want to talk a bit about your career in the shopping center. But you started with teachers, I think. Tell us a little bit about that and how you made the transition into ICSC. How did you get involved with shopping centers?
I did. I started as a mortgage analyst at TIAA-CREF, teachers as most people refer to it as. I came right out of Indiana University. I graduated on June 10th, and I started at Teachers on June 24th. I started as a mortgage analyst, and my first assignment at Teachers was the premier investor in shopping centers and basically financed the pioneers in
one of the first believers, right?
Truly, and really, we feel responsible for getting most of the major shopping center developers off to a good financing start. My very first assignment was to review the form lease on Pompano Fashion Square. Pompano Fashion Square, I'm sure, John, you remember, was one of Len Farber's finest and major shopping centers in Pompano Beach, Florida. So I sat there, my first day, that's all I did was read the form lease on Pompano Fashion Square, not knowing really what the protocol was, and just right out of Indiana University, if I had any questions about different provisions of the lease, etc., I picked up the phone and called Len Farber. And you know,
he answered.
And if he didn't answer, he returned my call. And I kind of think that, you know, some shopping center god or goddess was looking over my shoulder in those early days to have the real founding father of ICSC kind of show me the ropes.
Well, to some extent that's true, because, you know, he was sort of lovingly known as the founding Farber. Leonard Farber was the very first president of ICSC, and that was the title they used back in those days. President, now we call chairman, which is a job you've had most recently. And you also had a very special mentor at Teachers, someone who served himself as chairman of ICSC at a later time, and before you, Marty Cleary. Tell us about Marty and you.
Marty was actually a past president. Or a president of ICSC, but then they, of course, changed it to the title to chairman. But he was a past chair. But Marty, as head of the mortgage and real estate division at Teachers, and at Teachers we financed all property types. But he had a particular interest and sort of a affection for the shopping center type as an investment. And he helped those of us at Teachers understand the property type and its particular, the way it fit into our portfolio as an investment type. I mean, we looked at shopping centers not just as another piece of real estate with a cash flow that we financed. We looked at it as an ongoing business.
And you more or less helped define the protocols by which other lenders, other investors would follow that course over a very long period of time.
Yeah, I believe we did. I mean, we financed, and I was fortunate to really, at an early part of my career, to be involved with the major shopping center developers in this country. You know, Len Farber, we financed many of his shopping centers. Al Taubman, we financed almost all of Taubman shopping centers before they went public. Jim Rouse, the Rouse Company, we did the financing and felt very responsible for Faneuil Hall and Harbor Place. I mean, we basically provided the takeout on Faneuil Hall that actually enabled them to get a construction loan, because we stepped up and said, we'll take you out. I think it was Chase was the construction lender on Faneuil Hall.
You once upon a time told me that you had developed a custom of taking Albert Sussman, my predecessor, to lunch, I think on Valentine's Day, if my memory is correct.
That's a fond memory.
How did you get involved with ICSC, and to the point where you took Al Sussman to lunch?
Marty Cleary, as we talked about, who was head of the mortgage and real estate division at Teachers, left Teachers to go with Dick Jacobs, JVJ, the shopping center developer. Marty went on to be president of JVJ. And when Marty left Teachers, I became the official ICSC member. And so I had gone to conventions before. I wasn't a regular convention goer, so I started to go to the ICSC convention, the idea exchanges on a regular basis. And of course, being domiciled in New York, and got to know ICSC and Al Sussman, and Al was very supportive of Teachers' role in the shopping center business. So Al and I got to know each other, and he invited me to be on a number of panels. I can remember going to a panel when Horton Plaza was opening in a shopping center in San Diego.
That was Ernest Hahn's project in
Ernie
San Diego.
Hahn's, yeah, great shopping center. And Al asked me to be on a panel with him, and it was an incredible group of people, not only on the panel but at the program. And so we became friendly, and we liked the same people and kind of the product type in the the shopping center business, the retailers, and so we used to get together in New York, and just sort of one day I know what happened. One day he invited me for lunch at that great French restaurant on 50th Street with John Smith. Ah,
yes, John Dickerson Smith, who had developed down in Atlanta some very astounding projects.
Yes, and it happened.
And also chairman.
Also chairman, and recently passed away, as did Marty Cleary last year.
Talk a bit about how you reacted at the time, and how you thought the association reacted at the time when, because you mentioned a moment ago the business of people going public. Mm-hmm. Big change in how things were financed, big change in how things were looked at. What was your recollection of the things you had to do differently, or you thought the industry needed to do differently, and that ICSC needed to do differently at the time?
I think in the early 90s, when the major shopping center companies went public, it was really a pivotal point from a lender's standpoint in the shopping center business, and it had great effect on lenders like Teachers in our portfolio. Obviously, we know many of the developers that went public basically did it for survival purposes, but along the way it added transparency to the industry, again from a lender standpoint, that we didn't have before. We did many wonderful and productive shopping center loans, but in those days, certainly it was the real estate and the market and the tenants, etc. But it was based a lot on trust and relationships, and it was that relationship with Ernie Hahn, with Len Farber, Al Taubman. But when they went public, it sort of changed things. And from a lender standpoint, we sort of had to get used to a different role and a different relationship with the shopping center owner, our borrower. And we had to get used to the idea that there was the shareholder now that had to be dealt with from the developer standpoint. And for all the right reasons, and that was, we understood it. But we then took a look at our portfolio and our relationships.
So you had to do a different kind of analysis,
yeah.
And you made different kinds of judgments, and it wasn't, if I could say, quite as personalized, right, as
Indeed.
It had been in
Yeah.
an earlier day when the person with the name, whose name was on the door of the company, was in fact your client, and not a larger world of investors and shareholders.
Exactly. When I started out, in the early days at Teachers, we would never, we made an investment in a shopping center. We made a 25-year loan, and that loan was on our books for 25 years.
Looking back over time, when you feel to say that the one best time in ICSC or the one best time in my career, what would you point to? What would you say it was?
I found the days, really before the companies went public, the real fun time. Those were the days when you could come out to the convention. You could, you went around to see all of your developer clients. Everybody had these wonderful parties, and you had your lender, your department stores, your inline stores, and some competing developers all together in one room, but enjoying each other and enjoying each other's dialogue.
You and I and a bunch of others have often talked about this other thing that happens in ICSC along the lines that you say, and that is that friendships are developed. And they are, many of them, lifelong friendships and quite, I guess you could almost use the word intimate friendships, and not just business friendships, and often among competitors. It's a kind of glue to the business. Do you see a significant change in that?
I don't think it's really changed. I think it's continued to improve, and I have some of my great friends. I talked about Marty Cleary before, but some of my really great friends are my ICSC colleagues and in the past competitors.
It's a great statement about the past, and I think it's a great statement for the future. Thanks for being with us today. That's
My
great.
pleasure.